Hi, Mayor.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, Mayor Pro Tem. I was trying to get unmuted there. Hey, I like your hat. Whoa, that's cute. Very nice.
It's casual, right?
You
Casual
bet.
workshop. Okay.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's holiday time.
Yes.
Very nice.
You have to smile about something since we're kept away from everybody.
I know, it's so strange. Such a strange, interesting time.
Yes, it is.
Can the person on the phone please identify them saying in 6063?
So good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon of December 16th. I'd like to call this City Council special workshop to order. Due to COVID-19, there is no physical meeting location for Washington Proclamation 20-28. Today's meeting may be viewed live via YouTube or replayed on cable channel 10. In addition, to listen to the live meeting, the public may call 623-404-9000 and enter the meeting ID number, which is 149-766-1467, and this is for audio only. Public comment is not normally taken at workshop meetings. Council members, city staff, and guests are participating via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused from the Ring Central meeting at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. I do have before we move to the first agenda item, I've got a brief comment. I've been working with staff and Grant Weed, our city attorney, on the different options for council to consider for a potential 2021 city council retreat. If you're like me, some of you may think that we just finished our retreat, but with the COVID pandemic incident, it certainly was last year, early this year, I should say, that we did our last retreat. I'll ask that we hold discussion on this topic until the council comments at the end of the workshop if we have time, as we have guests waiting to present, but I did want to get council thinking about three options. And option number one would be to hold a visual city council retreat early in the year. Grant Weed has been asked and has agreed, subject to council approval, to facilitate the council retreat. if we do a virtual retreat early in the year 2021, I would ask that 2 council members and Grant work together with me in setting the agenda for the retreat. Option number 2 would be to plan an in-person retreat no sooner than July of 2021. And obviously dependent on the current, at that time, COVID-19 restrictions. As we have learned throughout this year, things are not progressing as quickly as we would like. And I do not want to expend staff and council time to plan for an in-person retreat until we are certain we will be able to hold one. So that would be option number 2. And then option number 3 would be to do not plan for a 2021 City Council retreat at this time. We can reevaluate as the year progresses and the situation with COVID-19 continues to change. So at the end of the meeting, if we have time, I'll give you a brief description of those 3 options again, and hopefully we'll have a little time to discuss to see if council has preferences one way or another. And then before we get on to our first presentation, I'd like to, although we don't do a normal roll call, I'd like to make sure that we do have some council here. So I see we've got our Mayor Pro Tem Munns with us, and I'm trying to see on my screen here, make sure that we've got Councillor Mack is with us, Councillor Goebel, Councillor Wassinger, Councillor Wiesner. So do we?
Mayor, all council members are present.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, Councillor, yes, I see that. Councillor Eisen, Councillor Servadius, thank you all. So we have our full council. We won't go through the staff introductions at this time, but in the interest of getting into our meeting and getting it over with on time. So with that, I would like to begin our community partner presentations with item number A, which is Puget Sound Energy Storm Response. And we have Karen Vandegrind, the local government affairs and public policy representative for Puget Sound Energy, to provide an update on PSE's storm preparedness and agency response. So Karen, I'll turn to you at this. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Severance. My name is Corinne Vandegrind. I am the local government affairs representative for Whidbey Island and Whatcom County. And I'll go ahead and share my presentation. Let's see. All right. Is that showing up all right?
Yes, that is.
Great. So I'm joined today by Robert Knoll, our local government storm lead, who represents Skagit and Snohomish counties, and then also Kevik Lensink, our northern first response supervisor. But today I just wanted to go over a quick 10-minute update of our storm preparedness and response. We'll start today's meeting with a safety moment, how we start all PSC meetings. We'll go over infrastructure, customer resources, how to restore power, a few things customers should know, how COVID-19 has impacted our operations, a few communications tools, and then end with some local updates. As you all know, we're already well into the windy season, so this is a timely safety moment. But if you see a downed utility wire of any kind, I'd always assume it's energized and immediately call 911 or PSC to report the incident. And if the line is laying across the road, stay in your car, but don't drive over the downed power lines. Sometimes folks assume a power line is a communication line. It can be hard to tell the difference. So always assume it's energized and definitely let someone know so we can come out and assist. Like I mentioned, I have a quick 10 minutes today, but I just wanted to point you all to psc.com/storm. It's a great resource on our website for customers, including videos for how to prepare for outages, on-site instructor-led classes and plans. And for folks who don't know, Puget Sound Energy serves over 1.1 million electric customers across our 11 county territory, and that includes Island County, but only Whidbey Island. So you can imagine when storms and outages hit, it's an all hands on deck situation for PSC. We have over 900 employees with emergency response roles. And that's actually almost a third of our company's total employees. We have 7 regional storm bases, including one in Burlington, that manage the rapid response assessment and repairs. And then we have emergency coordination centers that provide oversight and direction for the coordinated response. The primary functions of these ECCs are situational awareness, common operating picture, and logistical support, and of course, communications. Essentially, when an ECC opens, that's when an outage reaches a threshold beyond what the company can manage under normal operating procedures, and that's when you'll hear from me with real-time situation reports. Let's see. Oop. All right. So how we restore facilities and customers, it depends on 2 different prioritization systems. The first one is our system prioritization, which connects transmission systems first. Those are the systems that connect on the regional level. So that's how we get power from critical generation assets to customers at the county, city, and neighborhood level. They also affect other utilities. From there, we restore substations, which can affect thousands of customers at a time. And these are critical to re-energize prior to the next level, which is distribution systems. And these systems deliver power to your home or business. Typically, it's what you see on overhead lines. And then within that above context, we also consider additional priority restoration. Our emergency response coordinators maintain updated lists of critical infrastructure that can include hospitals, regional airports, water, wastewater treatment plants, sewage pumping stations, emergency shelters and response. And then that also includes facilities which people can't be easily relocated. And so that's like nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So there are 3 types of trucks you'll typically see. I'm sorry, one moment. Are the slides progressing? It seems like they're a little, oh no. All right, there's about a 3-second delay, so I'm sorry if folks are confused. So there's 3 types of trucks that folks might see during an outage situation. The assessments are all done by PSC, and then the restoration is done by Patelco. The restoration work is assigned after a damage assessment has been performed on impacted equipment locations. Once the type of damage and work is known, then an appropriate resource is dispatched to begin that work. We also have an obligation to clear arterial right-of-ways before restoring power. So you might see us come out for several different visits. Slide. And I didn't know this prior to joining PSC, but we typically don't know when an outage occurs unless we get notified by our customers. For the transmission and substations, we know immediately since those are monitored from the central office. But if you have an outage in your neighborhood, we rely on our customers to report it through the MyPSC app, our website, or by calling us. And if you don't have power back in a couple hours, go ahead and give us a call back. You can bug us. We want to hear from you and make sure that your power is restored. So the outage map that I mentioned before can be found on both our website and our mobile app. On our app, you can also do bill pay, account info, and then there's a few cool usage and efficiency features. We also share outage information through social media, text alerts, and situation reports to electeds. Overall, we provide a ton of information to keep folks informed during an incident. I just wanted to walk through that outage map I was mentioning. I typically recommend that folks have the MyPSC app on their phone, because in an outage situation, you might lose power to your computer, and it's a really great way to staying connected and reporting and getting the estimated restoration time straight to your phone. So you'll see an aggregated Google map with the outages in your area, and then you can zoom in. And see the number of customers impacted, the cause, estimated restoration times. And estimated restoration times are our best idea of when your power will be back online. Typically, we dispatch resources that give an updated ETR. We typically post a high-level ETR at first, and then update as we get a clearer picture. coming. There we go. Like I mentioned before, there are a bunch of resources available online for customers to prepare. General rule of thumb is for your emergency kit to provide you and your family for 3 days without power. So your checklist should include things like first aid kit, water, stove, food, cash, matches, flashlight, and batteries. That's an important one, a backup charger for your phone, because like I mentioned, without power, that's going to be your source for finding those ETRs, and then also calling if you need additional assistance. And this goes without saying, but right now is a really, really tough time for folks to be out of power, especially with most of us working from home and students doing distance learning. And I know the recent outages last month hit folks really hard. At PSC, we're also adapting our response to meet public health guidelines for our crews, such as providing PPE and social distancing, and adapting to COVID-19 may also result in delayed restoration, but we are planning ahead to avoid any longer outages for customers than need be. We still have the availability of outside crews should we need them through mutual assistance agreements, but overall, the safety of our customers and crews is our #1 priority. So just to quickly wrap up, I wanted to give a few local updates. Our crisis affected customer assistance program, which was an $11 million fund, distributed over $7.7 million to our customers affected by the pandemic. And that included over $123,000 in bill assistance for Island County customers. And for folks still struggling to pay their bills, we have the HELP program. And we also connect folks to the LIHEAP assistance program. We continue to waive late fees, and we haven't disconnected any customers since the pandemic began. Also, a bit of good news, just south of you, Seaside Spa and Salon in Coopville just won our small business energy efficiency and cosmetic makeover, and that's worth over $45,000. So we're excited to see them on King 5's Evening Magazine in February. We also continue to support the Whidbey Community Foundation with a $20,000 grant, and then we'll roll out our PSC Foundation Community Response Grants next year. So everything we're doing is to get folks back to power as soon as we can, and then also support them during this difficult time. With that, I don't know if I'm running up against time, but I'd love to open it up for questions for me or for Robert or Kevik.
Corinne, first of all, I want to thank you for the presentation, and I want to thank you on behalf of the city and the police department for the electric charger station that we had put in at the police department. So great program.
Yeah, I was thrilled to see that roll out. Any questions?
Yeah, Mary, you're not on.
Okay, sorry about that. We have a question from Councillor Eisen. Tara?
Thank you, Mayor. It's not a question, it's a comment. I just want to recommend to anybody who doesn't already to get the PSE app on their phone. You guys did such a great job with that. I get, if the power goes out, I get a text message asking me to confirm if my power's out. If it comes back on, I get a text message. I can look at the map and see in real time. It's so user-friendly, and you guys just did such a great job with that, whoever developed that. And I strongly encourage everybody to get that. It's a fantastic tool. So thank you for your quick response and all of your efforts. I really appreciate the interaction.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, that app is a lifesaver. I check it all the time on the weekends, and I know Whidbey Island has had some really windy, stormy events this year. So while it's on top of everyone's minds, I would just encourage everyone to download it when they can.
Thanks again. Job well done. Thank you. We appreciate Puget Sound Energy, believe me. Okay, with that then we'll move on to item number B, which is the Oak Harbor Marina Restoration Feasibility Study Options. So I'm going to turn that to our Harbor Master, Chris Sublett, who I believe has a presentation along with Anna Toledo and Lori Clark from Island County.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, Council. We're here today to talk to you about the 3 grants we've been talking about for 4 years. These grants involve a shoreline enhancement, stormwater control, and then a shading reduction element. What's interesting about these projects is that they affect the marina. They also affect Catalina Park. They also tie in well with the Shoreline Master Program. And it's kind of unique in the sense that it's a joint project with the city and the county. Like you mentioned, we have Anna and Lori here today who are going to be giving us a presentation in a few minutes. We also have Brett and Jesse from the city. Just to bring you up to speed, recently a feasibility study was completed which outlines options for the projects. And that's what we're going to go over today. I'll just let you know that unfortunately the shading reduction project, the recommendation within the feasibility study was that it not move forward. So the presentation you're going to see today is just on the shoreline and stormwater control. The stormwater control is also the ramp. So you'll see that in the presentation as well. Just a heads up, this is something that we're going to bring to you January 5th for the City Council meeting. And at that time, we'll be seeking a motion to adopt one of the options you'll see today. So without anything else, I would ask that Anna and Lori give us a presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Mayor and council members. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me all right? I see some thumbs up. Great. So I will go ahead and share my screen with my presentation. And Lori Clark will be joining me. Will be joining in just a second. She's coming off from another call, so she will be joining shortly. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. As Chris said, I'm Anna Toledo with Island County, and I'm going to try and go through this feasibility study, which was completed back in June. And I've got a presentation. I'll try to get through it pretty quickly so that if there are any questions or conversation, we can get to those. Very briefly, I know Chris explained this, that this has been a partnership with the City of Oak Harbor and with Island County, as well as some other partners as well, with the Natural Resources, Washington Department of Natural Resources, and the Navy, who have all been involved in these discussions. The funding for the feasibility study to look at restoration opportunities came through the Estuary and Salmon Restoration Program, as well as the Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration Fund. And we worked with a consulting firm with Blue Coast Engineering, who put together the feasibility study, and a number of their images are from them, and the slides today are from them. There were 3 main project elements that were looked at in this feasibility study. One being the shoreline armor, the potential for shoreline armor removal or restoration along this stretch of shoreline, which goes from the yacht club all the way into some of the adjacent Navy property down here. We also looked at potential for water quality improvements. There's a lot of impervious surface in this area, and so looking at ways to bring in some more natural opportunities for water quality improvement. And then we also, along with the water quality improvements, also looked at the boat ramp for some opportunities for improvements there as well. The shading reduction was another element that we looked into, which, as Chris mentioned, through the feasibility study was found to have some constraints and was not included within the final options that we'll be looking at today. So we'll be focusing in on the shoreline and stormwater opportunities. The project goals was really, within these 3 project elements, was really looking into how can we provide ecological benefit while also maintaining and ideally improving recreational uses at the marina as well. So really looking at this as a multi-benefit project. In working with Blue Coast Engineering, the project area was broken up into reaches, which I'll be going into in the design options. Reach 1 is essentially in front of Catalina Park. Reach 2 being the area, this stretch of shoreline in front of the parking area here. Reach 3 is really the boat ramp and the immediately adjacent shoreline. Reach 4 is in front of the boatyard here, and then reach 5 is in the Navy property. As we move into the design options, just a few notes. The conceptual design options were looked at both by reach as well as levels of improvement. Each one has sort of a minimum level of impact and improvement and a maximum level of improvement. As I mentioned, the overwater shading was not included in the design options. Additionally, reaches 4 and 5 were identified in the study as opportunities for future restoration potential, but were not immediately included in this analysis. So today we'll really be looking at reaches 1 through 3, which reach from the yacht club down through the boat ramp. Reach 1, this is the sort of minimum improvement option. This photo here is of the existing condition. So again, this is right in front of Catalina Park, looking at the shoreline armor here. And when we look at shoreline armor, there are some things both from an environmental perspective as well as a recreational perspective on why we want to look at alternatives. Removing or reducing armoring or softening it, making it more of a natural, using more natural materials, provides both habitat benefit as well as aesthetic and recreational benefits, being able to get down to the shoreline, not having to kind of climb over rock and debris. So the minimum level of improvement here would be fairly basic, just a restacking, kind of cleaning up of the existing shoreline armoring. There wouldn't be any removal really of the shoreline armoring here, just be a kind of restacking and cleaning up, maybe getting rid of a bit of the debris, but working within the existing footprint. So that's a minimum option. The maximum improvement option, it would be the creation of a pocket beach. And so what this does is it would involve the removal of the shoreline armoring, except at the very edges. So there would be maintain the armoring on the very edges of this area, but creating a natural pocket beach here, which would allow for increased beach area and easy beach access without having to climb over the rocks. Again, providing both that habitat improvement as well as the recreational improvement. You will probably notice that that this line here cuts in through where the gazebo currently is. So that would be a consideration with this option, would be the relocation of the gazebo, as well as a utility corridor, which runs along this area. So those would both be involved in the consideration of this option. And just to give a little bit of visualization, because I know sometimes it's hard to kind of think about what, what different actions would look like. We've worked in a couple different areas. This is up at Cornet Bay, where we partnered on a restoration project here. So this is kind of just the before and after of what the creation of a pocket beach, in another area looks like. Obviously, each area is unique, but what the creation of a pocket beach does is allows for greater beach access. The installation of native vegetation up here. There's a walking path and some, you can't really see very well, but there's some picnic benches up here. So it adds, again, both to the aesthetics as well as the habitat opportunities here, and just side by side. I think I have one other example. Up here, similarly, this is an area where there was a lot of rock and riprap, hard to get down to the beach, and by implementing the pocket beach, allowed for again that ability to access the beach and provided for a more natural kind of sandy shoreline. There they are, side by side. In Reach 2, so again, this is the area that is backed by the parking lot. Because of constraints with parking, there aren't, we didn't explore options to fully remove the armor. We're looking at the two different options, sort of the minimum and maximum levels, both within this slide, with the minimum level here at the top. And this would, again, similar to in Reach 1, minimum level would really just involve kind of a restacking, cleanup of the existing armor that is there. With the maximum improvement option would involve a setback of the armor. And what this would allow is actually a fair amount of habitat gain in front of the armoring. You may have noticed in the meeting materials, we gave this presentation to the Marina Advisory Committee as well, who had some questions around whether there would be any impact on the parking with this option. And this is something that I know Chris and Blaine have looked into as well, and may be able to provide some input either now or at the end to ensure that there wouldn't be any overall impact to the parking capacity with this second option, if that were the way that the city were interested in. Chris, did you want to chime in at this point?
Yeah, sure. So as we looked at that, there's about 20 parking stalls that are on the water side or the west side of that front parking area. That we think we can keep the same amount of parking at the marina by reducing or using that space for this new little pocket beach. I think that it's possible for us to use parking along the fence line, parking at the end of our buildings, even parallel parking along the park if we have to. The distance from the shore or from what we call the bull rail at the edge of the parking lot to the stalls is about 20 feet. So I'm pretty confident that we can not lose any parking and maybe in fact gain some by rearranging our storage areas and creating new parking in other areas. So very confident about doing that.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for that input. I'll keep moving along here. Don't worry, this slide has, you don't need to be able to read what's going on here. There's a lot going on in this map, but the thing I wanted to point out here is the stormwater. So this is the stormwater options, and the options that we looked into here were really utilizing bioretention cells, which utilizes native plants and soils to be able to more naturally filter water, since currently a lot of the water is essentially coming off of all this impervious surface, all this parking lot and the roofs, where it's picking up various oils and other other elements from cars or just from the other activities that are happening at the marina. And there's very little filtration that's happening before that water is outflows into the bay. And so utilizing bioretention facilities, these more natural facilities, would allow for that more natural filtration of the water before it goes out into the marina. So with this, there are sort of three levels of options. One, the minimum level here, and what you'll see is sort of this this bright green that you see throughout the map. This bright green here. These are the areas where the bioretention would be. So the minimum would be along the shoreline within Reach 2, again in conjunction with the shoreline armor option that's chosen. In conjunction with that would be the installation of bioretention cells along the shoreline. If there was interest in adding additional bioretention facilities, the sort of middle option would be to add additional bioretention up here in Catalina Park, and then the total maximum option here would be looking into the Navy property to add several additional bioretention cells there as well. So really, with this minimum option, that's something that we would want to look at doing at the same time that any shoreline work is being done along Reach 2. The other two options, are additional and could be done, don't necessarily have to be done at the same time that that shoreline work is being done, since they're a little further upland. And again, just to show a couple examples of what bioretention potentially looks like, it's again utilizing these plants and soils to be able to next to impervious surfaces to hold, slow down, and filter water. This is the one on the left is newer plantings, and the one on the right, the plantings have matured a bit. So, in whatever option for bioretention that move forward, it would, utilize vegetation to give a natural aesthetic, pleasing look to the area. Reach 3 is the boat ramp. And there were essentially, two options here. The first one being no action, leaving it as is. And, the thing about the boat ramp, there are sort of two main concerns about the existing boat ramp. One, that it's quite large. It has a very large footprint. It was originally developed for seaplanes. And the second one being that it has a very shallow slope. And so what that means is you've got cars that are backing way up into the water, which, is not great either for the water or for the cars. And so the option here for improvement would be a smaller footprint for the boat ramp, as well as a steeper slope. And so what you're seeing here, the larger rectangle I'm trying to outline with my cursor, is the existing footprint of the boat ramp. The proposed improvement would be a reduction of that footprint with this smaller rectangle in the middle and a steepening of the slope. And so there were 5 alternatives that were presented in the feasibility study. These range essentially, going from alternative 1 to alternative 5 goes from sort of the minimum to the maximum level of improvement that we're looking at. Alternative 1 was pulled out really just as the stormwater piece, in case that was something that we wanted to consider, especially given any opportunities for stormwater specific funding. It also pulls out the minimum, moderate, and maximum levels that we talked about that could be kind of customized and added into any of these other alternatives. We used the minimum stormwater alternative as sort of the baseline for all of these. But again, if there were interest in adding additional bioretention facilities, those could be kind of swapped out in any of these alternatives. So I'll go through these really quick. I just have a couple more slides. It's this one and then one on funding, and then I'd be happy to take any questions about this. Alternative 2 is really the minimum level, kind of all around minimum levels and no action within the boat ramp. Alternative 3, minimum levels within reaches 1 and 2, but utilizing the improvement for the boat ramp. And then alternatives 4 and 5, here you have the creation of that pocket beach in front of Catalina Park. You also have the boat ramp here. The difference between 4 and 5 is in reach 2, which is that area by the parking lot, either the minimum armor cleanup or that maximum option where you've got a bit of a setback in reach 2 there. And so again, these are kind of laid out from minimum level of habitat and recreation improvement to maximum level of habitat and recreation improvement. So I'm sure folks are wondering about cost for all of these options. That was included. I'll go back for a second. You'll also see that cost increases for each of these options, understandably. But the good news is that we would be working to get these funded, to get the next phases funded through grant opportunities. Now, with that, alternative 5 being the one that is has the highest habitat and restoration and recreation improvement, is the one that would be most likely to be funded through habitat as well as recreation funding sources. And kind of the next phases of implementation would be a preliminary design, and we already have some potential funding lined up. It's not in the bank, but we've been working with the local integrating organization and Lori Clark, who may be on the call now, as well as the coordinator for our Island Local Integrating Organization. And there's interest there in continuing to support this project and moving it forward. And if the more habitat-friendly option is recommended, then it's likely to rank fairly well for funding, which would be the next phase, the preliminary design. Then we'd move into final design and permitting. There are options for funding there as well. The Salmon Recovery Funding Board, as well as some other restoration funds, such as the National Estuary Program and the Estuary and Salmon Restoration Program, would potentially be interested in helping to move this project forward. And then implementation, that's would be a large and costly phase, but again, one that if we've gotten funding through some of these habitat and recreation sources, they tend to like to continue to see a project forward to completion, and so we continue to work with those funding sources to apply for grants, as well as there may be other funding sources available as well, looking at stormwater specific funds, infrastructure funding as well. So with that, I would love to take any questions. I don't know, Chris or Lori, if you're on, if you have any additional comments to add, I will be happy to take those.
I am here, Anna, and I think you did a fabulous job. I have nothing to add, but I'm here to take any questions if anyone has questions about funding.
So we have a question from Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Beth?
Thank you. Ms. Salito, I don't know if by chance, I see right now we're the opposite between the extreme high and extreme low tides, but on November 13th, 14th, we had the most driftwood I've ever seen that didn't quite completely go over and next to the gazebo, but it was massive. Now, eventually it went away with the tide, but I don't know if that would have wiped out what your new pocket beach would have been or not. I shared the photo with Mr. Sublett, our harbor master. He could probably give you more information. I don't know if you saw that from that storm.
Yeah, thank you, council member. I didn't see that. I haven't seen the specific photos that you're referencing. And I think that is an excellent point that you bring up. That's actually one of the things that is taken into consideration with a more natural beach. It's actually natural beaches tend to be able to absorb more of the storm surge and the wave activity that happens during these increased storm activity that we're seeing. The certainly storm surge and sea level rise was a consideration in this feasibility study, and any further design would certainly look at ensuring that there's whether it's creating a bit of a berm at the top of the natural shoreline there, or utilizing materials if it's necessary, such as anchored logs, to create additional stabilization along the shoreline.
Okay, and then just a comment. We're one of the few cities that has access to the water. I mean, it is such an asset to our whole city. I mean, people just love parking their car and looking out, bringing their lunch down there, walking along. It's just vital to our city and I think to the island. And I would like to see as much as we can, if we can go all in the different phases to do it all, shorten the ramp, make a beach around it. I would just love to see it. It seems like we're always forgotten, and I would really like to see the whole project go through. It's an asset that you can't get back once it's lost. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think that's an excellent point. That was one of the things actually that that made this project the feasibility study attractive to the funders was the potential for increasing public use of the beach, the opportunity as an educational opportunity to really get people down and interacting with the beach, since it's such a highly popular area.
I know that on some mornings when people come to smelt, they come as far as Tacoma, and it's like a little United Nations. There are so many languages being spoken. They're friendly. They let you look to see what they caught. They bring their kids, their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers. It's just kind of a wonderful vibe down there, that we happen to have a boat down there in one of the slips that we are able to witness. So it really, it's more than just our region. It also brings in other guests to come. So that would be wonderful. We could make this all happen.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Harbor Master Chris and Anna and Lori from Island County. I appreciate the partnerships we've had in the past and have going at this time. Thank you. We'll move on now to our next item, I think, which is administration. Speaking of partnerships, you have in your packet a memorandum of understanding between the county and the city of Oak Harbor. Our city was contacted by Island County asking for public information officer assistance, and we've invited Island County, and I think we've got Bill Oakes with us. Bill was part of the county COVID leadership team. He provided some further information about the scope and hours that they need at this point in time. After discussion with Sabrina, our PIO, and the county, the city is willing to commit 10 hours per week of Sabrina's time for a short time now, and the cost and so forth are part of the packet here. Memorandum of understanding is also included. So if you've got questions, we've got Bill here from Island County, and I think Sabrina's on the line too. But we wanted council to know about this request and this response. So Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to chime in. It is so nice for the county to recognize our PIO officer.
Thanks. Yeah, I've got to tell you, I was a little reluctant because she's already working night and day, seems like, for our city, but she's able and willing to help, and I know she'll be great help. And so it'll be an interesting time during the vaccine for the COVID, which is, I know, in process right now. So we'll be helping them. Councilor Heisen, Tara.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to express my wholehearted support for this. Anything that encourages teamwork and collaboration and communication absolutely has my support. So thank you to the county for the collaboration and the idea, and thank you to Sabrina for being willing to take this on. I think this is going to be a great thing.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Wassinger.
Yes, thank you. I too support this. It's awesome. Great job from Sabrina. And also, I just wanted to say, I was going to chime in earlier, I have to take my daughter to an orthodontist appointment here in about 15, 20 minutes, but I didn't want to interrupt anyone that may be presenting. So what I'm going to do is switch over to my phone so I can just listen while I drive, but I may not be able to respond because I'll be driving to her orthodontist appointment in Anacortes. Just wanted to let you know that's where I go. Thank you.
Do so safely.
Yes.
Okay, seeing then no other questions at this time. Okay, we'll move on to Development Services Shoreline Master Program update. And I think we've got our senior planner, Dennis Lefebvre, to present this.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Dennis Lefebvre, Senior Planner. I just want to take a step back and express my excitement for the project that the Marina just described to you folks. It does carry forth a lot of the recommendations that we have in our Shoreline Master Program, including increased public access, the removal of the hard armoring and replacement with the soft armoring, which is very important, as well as the management of the stormwater that would be coming off the parking lot. So those are all enhancements to our shoreline, which this project would reflect and totally support it and totally in conformance with our master program. My update today is going to be very brief. I think last meeting in October, I had promised you a draft of the Shoreline Master Program. We're not quite there yet. There's a couple of pieces that we are still pulling together to incorporate into this draft, and one of them is the report from our consultants that are working on the Scenic Heights area, the beach and the bluff and the upland area stability for the bluff. So we are waiting for that report. I've been in contact with them on a regular basis, and they will be getting that report to me in a matter of days. So once we get that and staff takes a look at it, we'll incorporate the recommendations that they are making as part of our periodic review for the Shoreline Master Program. And the other piece that staff is going to be integrating into this update is also addressing the sea level rise issue, which was also part of the discussion with the Marina project. We will be looking at integrating to some degree a discussion on sea level rise, which was absolutely absent in our previous version of our Shoreline Master Program. We had a slight discussion with the Planning Commission on the degree of integration of our sea level rise discussion, and we're going to keep it at somewhat of a high level, more of a policy direction than getting into regulatory requirements as part of this update. So that'll be all part of the draft, which I hope to bring forward to you. I would say early part of next year. I'm looking at possibly the January workshop, but for sure the February workshop. We are, as you directed staff, to proceed with this process in coordination with the Department of Ecology. We are setting up timelines to engage in their required steps as well as our required steps. We'll have a 30-day review period and also a joint public hearing. I'm looking at March for that. And then we'll carry it forward through the required steps of Department of Ecology review and conformance steps, and then also take it forward for our adoption probably in May, which is close to our June deadline for this project. The steps is the required information that Ecology is looking at is included as attachment 1. You can see there's a lot of information that they are requiring, but we are consistent with most of those pieces at this point in time. So with that, I would be happy to answer any of your questions that you might have on this project. I think you're muted, Mayor.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Dennis. We have a question from Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Beth?
Thank you. I guess today's my question day. So, Mr. Lefebvre, with what we just heard about possible grants to make pocket beaches and things like that, would you need to know that to finalize the plan that is due by June? Would you need to know to incorporate that also into your report?
No, we would not. We would have policy guidance that actually, while we already have established in our Shoreline Master Program policy guidance, which permits these types of projects to move forward. It's all consistent. There wouldn't be any regulatory issues other than just the permitting of a project of this nature. But this project is right now consistent with what we have in place for our Shoreline Master Program. So we wouldn't envision any revisions to that to dovetail this project into our periodic update.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Dennis, for that. And it looks like you're also on the bubble here for item number B, Housing Action Plan update.
I am, and thank you again, Mr. Mayor. We are moving forward with the Housing Action Plan. We received from our consultants the Housing Needs Assessment, which is basically a snapshot of our community regarding the population and demographics, the current housing situation, income levels. There's a lot of information in this Housing Needs Assessment, so I thought even though it's a draft form at this point in time, get this into your hands so you have plenty of time to review this. This is a key piece that will identify hopefully some of the gaps and areas in our housing market that need to be addressed. And then also the next piece will be looking at our policy and our regulations that we have in our development code to see if there's some methods or strategies that we can amend or change to provide some more flexibility in filling those gaps in our housing market. The one thing I'd like to make note of in this draft of the Housing Needs Assessment is the final section which deals with land capacity analysis. This was prepared prior to staff's review of the map that's part of this assessment. We had a large number of changes that we made and recommended back to the consultants that were either inaccurate or we had better knowledge since we're local on what areas were developable and which areas were not. So when you look at this, keep this in mind that it's under review and revisement at this time. We have not received the revised version back from our consultants, but we will shortly, and then we'll pass this on to you as well. But as I mentioned, this is going to be a key piece for our Housing Action Plan strategies and methodology, which we will be presenting in the months to come, again, probably in the first quarter of next year. And again, for the audience that may be listening, this is all available on our webpage. It's under the City of Oak Harbor webpage, under current projects or news, and it's under the Housing Action Plan. All this information is available for review. So with that, I conclude my remarks and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Dennis. So I'll turn to council. I don't see any at this time, so I'm sure there will be more to come then from the sounds of it. So thank you, Mr. Lefevre. We appreciate it. We'll move on.
Merry Christmas to you all.
Well, thank you. Same to you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on then to the section C, which is the horizontal mixed use discussion, non-CBD commercial districts. And for today, we have our Associate Planner, Ray Lindenberg. Ray, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good deal. Okay. So this is a very brief introduction to the concept of horizontal mixed use. We've already talked about vertical mixed use quite a bit when we were talking about the Central Business District Code amendments and changes. So we're going to investigate horizontal mixed use a little bit because we've had some interest in that. And so I'm going to share a little presentation with you and then invite any conversation, concerns, etc., that you might have. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my presentation started here in just a moment.
I really like your background, Ray.
Thank you.
Did you do that on your computer?
I did, yeah. I'm not really perched on top of something, I guess, is what it would be at this point. So can everybody see that okay, the presentation screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes, I think so.
All right. So, back to this. Gotta figure out where all my screens go because they disappear on me sometimes. So, okay, so horizontal mixed use. This process, like I said, is being viewed as kind of a continuation of work that we've done in the past with regard to our Central Business District and some of the residential uses that are contemplated there and in other places. So one of the things that we've had brought up to us as staff is the idea of allowing for horizontal mixed use. And the question is, what's the difference? And so the difference really is that when you have mixed use in a single building, we would consider that vertical mixed use. That would be something that's allowed in the central business district. That's also allowed in our other zoning districts. This gives you kind of a good visualization of what we're talking about. You have the commercial in red and the residential in yellow. And again, they're in the same building. One is on top of the other. And so the thing is about vertical mixed use is it has some definite kind of emphasis in it, in that you have a definitely more compact and downtown, in quotation marks, appearance. So you have that kind of traditional storefront on the bottom floor with some sort of residential uses above. It creates a very pedestrian-oriented environment, which is good, but it can limit development potential for certain properties, and it may limit development based on what the real estate market is, and especially in the commercial use area. When you have the horizontal mixed use, we're looking at commercial and residential uses that occupy different buildings but on the same site. And so in this particular diagram here, you see that there are buildings that have entirely commercial in red and entirely residential in yellow, but they are on the same site. Now the effects of those that type of development is it can provide a little bit of balance to the development. That way, if the real estate market says that we need more residential, then they can balance that easier than building on top of each other, because there is a little bit of flexibility there as far as what gets built first, or as you move through the project or go kind of move through phases of a project, there you can kind of change the mix a little bit as needed. So that grants a little bit greater flexibility to some parcels. It does create a little bit more of a kind of suburban type environment where you might have a large parking lot or parking area for your commercial uses, and driveways and aisles for your residential uses. It seems to create a little bit more of an automobile-oriented environment, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not something you necessarily want to see on your main thoroughfare, your Pioneer Way or your main street. So the question is, why are we even investigating this? Why are we talking about it? Well, we have specific interest from 2 developers, and we have potential interest from another developer of a property or owner of a property here in town. The specifics of that are a project or a property that's on Northeast Goldie Street, and one that's at the corner of 8th and Atlas. And I'm not going to read through those specifically. If you're interested in the details, I can send that out to you. But essentially what we're looking at is there are 2 property owners that are looking at developing their sites in this kind of horizontal mixed use concept. Is they want to be able to provide the mixed use, but they want to be able to have that flexibility to have the commercial use in a separate building closer to the main thoroughfare. In the instance of the Goldie Street project, they want to be able to do commercial buildings out towards Goldie Street, and then have residential buildings behind. And we've gone through pre-apps with them, trying to figure out ways to do vertical mixed use, and it's difficult because they're looking at what commercial use wants to be located essentially way down a driveway into a development that doesn't have any street frontage, doesn't have any kind of visibility to the street. It's difficult to sell that essentially to a commercial user. So the potential sites that I'm talking about, we have the one up on Goldie Street, we have the one on Atlas, and then the third site that I was discussing is the Pioneer Auto building, the former dealership building. It's up for sale. The question I had there was the owner and the real estate marketing team was looking at, what are some possibilities for the use of that property? Could they do, again, commercial out near Pioneer Way, and then doing residential units towards the back that are adjacent to the park, which makes a lot of sense. You don't necessarily have the market here to have an entire building of commercial and residential that would fill that property. So this way, again, that horizontal concept gives a little bit of extra flexibility there. Now, the commonality of these is that they all seem to be in the C3 zone district. They're all off of Highway 20, and there is that, again, there's that desire for the residential component kind of in the forefront there rather than the commercial development. Now, there are some benefits of allowing for horizontal mixed use. As I mentioned before, it can provide the balance to the development. It allows the developer a little bit of flexibility. The residential or commercial uses might be built first and kind of allow that demand to come for the other use. It allows additional residential capacity, which is something that we've been looking for, especially in multifamily units. It can reduce traffic. And some of these projects might be considered urban infill. The one on Goldie Street, probably not. But some of these other properties that this might apply to could be infill projects into urban areas. Now, there are negatives as well. One of those is it does have the possibility of reducing commercial land capacity. It can become essentially a de facto rezone to residential if the commercial isn't built. And there are conflicts possible between neighboring parcels when those uses weren't considered when it was rezoned to commercial. So there is that possibility. Now, like I said before, we're kind of in the early stages of this process. So we're thinking of using some other communities as a model. These listed here: Gig Harbor, Mukilteo, Port Townsend, Snoqualmie, Tumwater, they all have in their code the availability of doing horizontal mixed use, and seem to have requirements and standards that would be fitting to our code and our community. Some possibilities for integration into our code would be to allow horizontal mixed uses only in certain zone districts while maintaining the vertical mixed use as it is now. Vertical mixed use is allowed in most of our commercial zone districts. You can do it now. It's just that it isn't feasible in a lot of places for developers to do so. So we're looking specifically at the C3 district and the RO district. That RO district residential office is generally along Whidbey Avenue and some of those places. And then standards and requirements for horizontal mixed use, including frontage requirements, how much commercial would be required, if it would be required along the frontage of a street, or how we would handle that. Landscaping standards, not only for the frontage of the building, but including landscaping buffering between commercial and residential uses on the same property. And then also standards to mitigate half-finished projects. If, for instance, a project has a bunch of residential units constructed and then the commercial portion of the project isn't built, how do we mitigate that? Do we require that area be landscaped beforehand just to make sure that we don't have, kind of a weed patch growing there? And we also need to protect our commercial land inventory. We don't want to overbuild one use over the other because once it's gone, it's kind of difficult to get back. So there are concerns there. We did have a public comment from the potential developer at the Atlas, 8th and Atlas project. This one came in for our planning commission hearing on this, and he's just stating that they're interested in doing that. They feel that it can add additional residential units while still maintaining commercial uses as well. So that was one thing that was submitted to the planning commission when we talked to them last week about this. So talking about steps and process going through this, we've had our planning commission presentation, talking with you today about it. We're trying to determine interest in making changes to the code. It sounded like the planning commission was interested in further research and review. They did have some concerns about how it actually looks. And so what we're doing right now is working on finding other communities that have done this and some projects to use as examples to show to the planning commission. And of course, we will share that with you folks as well. So that's part of our staff research. And then working on a potential draft, some language that might fit into our code to allow for horizontal mixed use if we're interested in going that direction. and then presenting that conceptual language to the Planning Commission, City Council, going through public outreach and draft. And all of this, of course, is subject to your interest level here. So that's kind of why we're here today, is we want to present it to you, gauge interest, and then move forward based on that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my presentation now and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Ray. Nice presentation. We have a hand raised by Councillor Mack. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. Say, Ray, I've got a couple questions here. So in your opinion, a hypothetical situation, I understand where you're going with a lot of this, is, for instance, not to do away with a lot of commercial property, but to get something developed that satisfies all groups. What would be your opinion, horizontal or vertical, for the Berg lot in the corner of downtown there across the street from Beechma Park?
You know, hypothetically, that's a difficult one. I would say that generally you probably wouldn't want to have residential right up against the highway there. That is a very busy and potentially noisy area. If you were able to do commercial buildings and then residential buildings towards the back of a property, and this would apply to a lot of different properties, that would serve to kind of buffer those residential units from, you know, noise, traffic, etc. Specifically, you know, we talked about the property owner on the Pioneer Auto project. That's a very deep, you know, it goes way back to depth from the street. That when you have a parcel like that, you know, you have commercial tenants that want to be out close to the street for that visibility, and not, you don't necessarily want to have residential units on top in a location like that. But that parcel in particular has the amenity of having the park in the back. And so when you require that residential to be on top of the commercial, that either means that the commercial has to move all the way to the back, which is against what they want, or it means that the residential has to move to the front, which kind of defeats the purpose of being, you know, right close to the park and the water and everything. So again, I think it's about flexibility, and it's not flexibility in the CBD. I think the CBD needs to be stacked. That's the proper use for that. But in other areas, limited areas, not the entire, you know, city, not all of our commercial zones, but in specific areas, I think that the horizontal concept makes a lot of sense.
Okay, and I agree with you. Now, I noticed you showed those other cities there. I would highly recommend. I have family in Tumwater. They've done a lot of both of those, both horizontal and vertical. A lot of stonework, and there's a lot of commercial with residential on top. But there's also the horizontal mixed use, and they incorporate some of that, a little bit of both, where there's very little traffic, auto traffic in some, for those people that want to do the walking and the bike thing. And then there's the people that do the commuting and use the auto thing. So that would be a good, some photos from that area would be great to, I'd highly recommend getting into your next presentation, because there is some real smart building that they've integrated down into that area and made the most of all the small space that's available down there in Tumwater. So, but I'm for what you got going there, and it was a good presentation. I'm glad we're getting that out front. But you're right, we've got certain property that works for one and not the other, but we've got property that works for the other and not the other. So I think the versatility is what we're really after with a lot of this. So thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you.
Councillor Goebel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, Ray, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this presentation. I like the innovation and creativity, and I hope that we continue talking about this topic. I would love to see pictures of what Councilmember Mack mentioned of other cities, and I'm a visual, so I would love, lots of visuals. But I look forward to this conversation continuing. So thank you.
Thank you.
just in closing, to kind of bring up the comment I mentioned to the Plan Commission. In this state, Washington State, we don't have a lot of tools on the local level, and one of the strongest tools we have for economic development is flexibility in our zoning. So this is a good example of it to encourage economic development and development of property. So thank you for considering this, Ray, and good overview. Appreciate it.
Okay, I agree, and it's exciting to have some additional options. Another thing, you know, we've got a couple of our owners here that have come to the city, and rather than say no, we don't have it, and you know, it's nice to see that we've got this going. I just am excited about it. So thanks, Ray, and we'll see how we go from here. Okay, I think that concludes that topic. So for today's workshop, we'll move on then to the fire department and replacing extrication tools, FEMA grant. Chief Merrill. Chief?
Let's do that first. Is that better?
Hey, now I can hear you.
There we can go. I can hear myself just fine. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for your support last night on the SCBAs. The department truly appreciates that. And we're going to look forward to getting our new ones here in about 90 days. So thank you very much. So what I want to talk about is our battery-powered extrication tools. So according to NFPA 1936 standards, our extrication tools are slowly becoming obsolete. In our older vehicles, the A and B posts, which would be the front posts in front of the front doors and the back post right behind the front doors of a vehicle, used to be made out of really light gauge metal, and they were very easy to cut through. The newer vehicles, they've got stronger posts using boron and martensite boron steel. And with that, we need cutting forces up to 100,000 pounds if we had to make access into a vehicle. Our current Homatro tool only has about 30 to 45,000 PSI of cutting force. So what that means is the A and B posts in the newer vehicles, 20, from about 2000 on, is that boron steel, and they're 7 layers thick of formed metal. And in essence, our Homatros can't cut through them. And our current tools use a power head with hoses going to the cutting devices. We're restricted to 32 feet of distance away from our power head. Of course, the battery powered, we can go anywhere with them. There is a 120 volt adapter if we had to have an extended period of time. We're going to go for, and what I'm really letting you know is we want to apply for a FEMA grant for about $80,000 with the 10% matching fund in order to get the battery powered tools and get away from a hydraulic system that uses a pump, a motor, hoses, and control units. We're looking at 4 different tools and the accessories just to give you an idea what they look like. The one on the left is the Hurst tool one. That tool will develop over 100,000 pounds of cutting force. The Homatro, again, the same type of deal, over 120,000 pounds of cutting force. We're also going to look at spreaders so that we can tear vehicles apart. And then, of course, you're going to want the combination tools that can do spreading, can do cutting, can do pulling, can just literally tear a vehicle apart, and then rams in order to move the posts, move the seats, and to move the vehicle around. And then the accessories that go with that is the adapters, a battery charger, spare batteries, step chocks, lifting plates, chains and hooks, everything that we need in order to dismantle a vehicle during an accident. The intent is to apply with FEMA as soon as the grant opens up. I just want to make you all aware that we are going to be doing that application, that it's we're looking at about $80,000 worth of these tools. with a 10% matching fund. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have. I try to be as brief as possible.
Hey, thank you, Chief. A nice presentation there. Interesting tools. We have a hand raised from Councilor Tara Heisen. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, my question is probably an obvious one, but do you have the 10% matching funds in your equipment replacement reserve or somewhere in your budget to be able to acquire this if you did get the grant?
Yes.
Okay. And if and when we're able to get these new tools, I humbly request to be able to watch the training because I would love to see them in action.
Well, why don't we just put you hands-on?
We can, discuss that when it comes up. I might just watch
that one. Sure.
Your guys need the training more than I do.
Yeah, I think it would be very advantageous for you all to see how this stuff works.
I think that would be fascinating.
Any other? Councilor Mack.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chief, this grant process, step me through that. How long, when do you apply? How long does it take and when will you know?
You would ask that, wouldn't you, Jeff?
Well, approximately. I wouldn't hold you down to the date, let alone the hour.
We're waiting right now for the 2020 FEMA grant to open. We were told it was going to open December 2nd, and it hasn't opened as yet. Once you apply, they usually give you between 30 and 45 days is the application process time. And then it can take anywhere from 1 month to 12 months before you're notified if you're a recipient of the grant. So when you go out for these FEMA grants, there could be 8,000 other departments applying, and it's got to go through a computer review, then a peer review, and then the actual awarding of the grant. We've seen grants where it's taken them 8 to 10 months to get notified of award.
So in the meantime, we really don't have some of these tools that we could really use, that type of thing.
Yeah, with the older vehicles pre-2000, it's not an issue. With the newer vehicles, it is. If we got into an accident with newer vehicles, we would be calling Navy right away because they have the heavier tools to do the extrication.
Well, I understand that, sir, and I understand the grant process could take some extended time. I just like let everybody know this is public safety, and public safety is #1. And so we should stay in touch with the chief. I totally support these tools. There are also some of these newer models have titanium in them for lighter weight, more performance, and seconds can turn into minutes and minutes turn into hours. So I do believe this is an important thing. So keep us abreast, Chief, and appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Mack. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on then. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome, Mayor.
So we'll move on to the City Administrator report. Mr. Oborn.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. So first of all, to kind of start off, I want to thank the Wellness Committee for distributing winter wellness boxes. And so certainly the council members were included in it. The only condition is you have to open it with a smile. So we have 7 of them for all 7 council members at City Hall. Please come and get them. So great things in there, great surprises in there, and certainly appreciate the team effort in putting that together. Also doing things a little bit different this year. I have to put on my full outfit here with the help of a Christmas tree sweater. I was able to deliver 185 little small baskets here. The theme this year in the delivery was thank you for your involvement, encouragement, investment, commitment, excitement. Here's a little something for your enjoyment. Merry Christmas from Blaine Oborn, Oak Harbor City Administrator. And then on the back includes the calendar, and it's from the mayor and I. 2021 is almost here. Happy holidays and best wishes for the new year. You're always welcome to reach out if you would like to chat. Signed by Mayor Bob, extension 4502, and Blaine Oborn, extension 4501. So certainly this is a year to bring some extra cheer to employees. So it's my pleasure to distribute 185 of those yesterday. So going on to more serious issues here, but certainly it's always important to talk about employee morale and to bringing enjoyment to all in the city, and thanking all our employees for their really dedicated and hard work service. Another area I'm focused on, economic development, the EDC, IC, Economic Development Council of Island County, added a new business advisor that expands their ability to provide services. And so that's something, we have a lot of businesses here that they'll be reaching out to. And there's some information regarding that in my packet in the supplement, so see that. And then I think I only had one more item I wanted to bring up. Big accomplishment here. The Historic Preservation Commission is relatively new in the city. They got their certification during the time I've come here in my 2 years that I've been here. They just recently, last year, were able to get their certification. They went ahead and designated their first local designation, which is the historic Neal Tower. So great, and that starts our local, great effort there in recognizing the Neal Tower. And certainly, switch my cameras here. Sorry about that. There we go, back on. Yeah, so certainly a great, and we just did some renovation of that and have it Neal Tower in great shape right now. So certainly a lot of history there. And so if you want to look at the historic preservation packet, there's a lot of wealth of information there on the Neal Tower. So with that, certainly a lot of other great information here. I appreciate always with the participation from department heads in helping me put this monthly report to account together. So I'll take any questions.
Okay, seeing none. Then thank you, Mr. Oborn. I know there's a lot to read in there, and hopefully I know that sometimes a question or two, and it's hard to find all the answers, but there are a lot of answers in this presentation. So as to what is happening at the city. So thank you very much again for that. So I had mentioned earlier in the workshop here that we have been working on options for a retreat or not at this time, and I just kind of wanted to see how the council feels, or maybe you don't want to talk, but it looks like we've got a little time, and if there are any feelings, you don't necessarily have to answer at this time, but if you're willing and able and have something, let us know how you feel, whether you'd like to have us plan for a retreat early in 2021. We normally try to do that each year. This has certainly been the year 2020 with the COVID problem has made this year a different year for sure. But if you'd like to try to do a virtual city council retreat, Grant Weed has said he would try to help us, and we can, work to put that together. And certainly, like I mentioned, I would ask a couple of council people to help myself and Grant to set the agenda. Item or option number 2 would be to plan for something in the way of where we could meet in person middle of the year, no sooner than July of 2021. And again, we don't know what the COVID requirements might be at that point in time. So we can't really be sure that we could do that. And then finally, the other option would be to not really make a plan yet and reevaluate it as the year progresses and the situation with COVID-19 continues to change. So is council interested in talking about any of these? I see one hand. I'll go to Councilor Mack.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That's a good thought. I mean, it's been a stressful, trying year, and you're probably right at the top of the list for probably having the most stress of anybody. So well done, Mayor Severance, for maintaining your composure all year under these circumstances. In my opinion, as far as I'm concerned personally, I'm not sure what my peers think. We don't know what's going to lead us in the future. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a big Zoom person, so that's off my table. End of the second quarter, 1st of July is a good possibility, and assess the situation as it goes. I think there's a lot of important things that are going to be happening in 21, a lot of good things. I always like to think positive. If we can meet sooner, fine. But I do believe that that July target date is, I think we'll know a lot more. We'll know a lot more about different projects progressing and through our meetings and workshops. So again, everyone else can chime in, but I'm open to seeing how it goes and do something in that 1st of July and get together in person if we possibly can, even if we've got to sit distance, but do it in person any way we can. Let's use that new room down there that we've have a lot of money into and fit all the people in there down to that's supposed to be the interpretive center. So again, that's just my opinion, but thank you again, Mayor.
Thanks, Councilor Mack. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree that an in-person retreat would certainly be my preference, especially in a time where we haven't been able to get together much. But because we haven't been able to get together much, I think that any retreat would be better than none. And so to be able to do a virtual retreat, I think is really doable. It could be done kind of webinar style with built-in surveys and stuff so we can contribute our priorities or our votes or our thoughts to certain concepts. Typically we would take some priorities and I'll rank them. That can all be done virtually instead of by sticky notes. So there's certainly ways that we can innovate, and it might not be as involved as previous retreats, but again, I think it would be better than nothing. So in my ideal situation, we could do something virtually early next year, and then follow up with something in person when we're able to do that, when we're confident that we're able to do that safely. So that's my 2 cents. I think having nothing is not an option.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Heisen. Councilor Goebel.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel very similar to Councilor Heisen. As a new council member, I would definitely appreciate the opportunity to have a retreat. I'm not exactly sure what is covered at the retreat, but I'm sure it's very good information. And for a new person, it's all extremely important information for me to know and understand, as well as just develop relationships with my fellow council members and city staff. Obviously, in a perfect world, I ranked those options. Option number 2 would be my first choice, the in-person retreat. If we can, I'm an optimist. Hopefully the world will look a little different in July with vaccines rolling out in Island County starting December 28th. So that would be my first choice. But if that is not able to be done in a safe way, then I'm totally open to a virtual, retreat. This is kind of the virtual world we're living in and could be for the foreseeable future. So I'm open to both of those options, but I would rather have some sort of facilitated team building, goal setting, strategic planning kind of retreat than not do anything at all. So that's my opinion. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Councilor Goebel. So you know, we don't have to make any final decision. We're not going to today. We don't generally in these workshops anyway. So if you other counselors have input, send me an email. Let's talk about it. Look for other opportunities too, if there are. So I see that Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry, didn't see your hand.
No, that's all right. I'll send you an email with my comments about the retreat, but I wanted to ask our city clerk if there's any vouchers that need to be signed. Our council members need to get in there and sign them. Jeff Mack's been a stellar signer, and I just want to ask her if they need to be signed this week, that we can get it done. So I'm just putting a plug in for that, if she would let us know, please.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, there are vouchers to be signed. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mack.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just one last thought on that retreat. I know we don't have to do anything, but summertime, July, that's one of your premium time of the years here on Whidbey Island. Let's do something outdoors. Let's bring our lunches. Let's ride our e-bike somewhere, and let's sack out on the beach and have a retreat and discuss what's important. Let's catch a good time of the year. Come on, folks, we're outside. We'll stay social distance and we'll do what we need to do. But let's, with the nicer weather, let's do something outside. We just all
I love that idea.
So let's just enjoy our weather. We'll do it at the park. We'll make sure no one bothers us, but I'll just throw that out there to everybody. And with that, I'm going to sign off and wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. So I think that we've talked enough about that now. I appreciate your input. Let's look for some ideas there. Going forward, we'll communicate, listen to you, and make a plan. So with that said, again, thank you for all of your hard work, city councilors, and your wisdom. We appreciate it, believe me. Thank you to our staff, our citizens. I wanted to also say thank you to the many volunteers. We have not only volunteers that help us here at the city, but we've got our staff volunteering for things in our community on a daily basis. And so it's just so we so much appreciate all the help that we get. And with that said, I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, happy, safe holiday. Councillor Servadius, I wish you well and get well soon. And then we'll see you all going forward into the holidays and certainly into next year. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.